Good morning, everyone. So, what we have learnt in the last session, guys, what we discussed in the last session.
Swagger.
Yeah, in the last session, we started our discussion related to Swagger. So, what is Swagger in the REST API development and why we need to learn about the Swagger? Swagger is used to generate the documentation for the REST API, guys. Okay, so Swagger is used to generate the documentation for REST API. Why we need to generate the documentation for the REST API? As discussed yesterday, provider application will be developed by one company, consumer application will be developed by another company. So if we want to develop a consumer, we need to know about the provider. How can we know about the provider? So how to know about the provider? In order to develop a consumer, we need some details from the provider. What are the details we need from the provider? Like, who is our provider? We should know who is our provider. We should know where is our provider, and we should know what services are offering by the provider, what operations are available in the provider, what is request payload and what is response payload, what data we need to send as a input for the provider, what data we will get as a output from the provider. All this information we should know. Then only we can develop the consumer. How provider will share all this information to the consumer. So that's where provider will come up with one documentation, guys. Provider will give the documentation to the consumer. So IRCTC application will give all these details to the Make My Trip application. Then only Make My Trip application can communicate with the IRCTC. What is the URL of the provider? What methods available in the provider? What is request? What is response? What data we need to send in the request? What data we are going to get in the response? All this information we should know. Then only we can communicate with the provider. Otherwise, we cannot communicate with the provider. So that's where Swagger comes into picture. By using this Swagger, that's where Swagger comes into picture. By using this Swagger, we can generate documentation for the REST API. Using Swagger UI, we can also test the REST API. Using Swagger UI, we can test REST APIs. Okay, so not only for generating the documentation, even Swagger is used to test the REST API also. As of now, we have done the REST API testing by using Postman. As of now, we have done the REST API testing by using Postman. Similarly, we can do the REST API testing by using Swagger also. If a provider is giving all this information to the consumer, then easily we can develop the consumer and we can communicate with the provider. All right. Now, how to add the Swagger in our application? To add the Swagger in our application, very simply we can add the Swagger to the application. How to add the Swagger to the application? To add the Swagger to the application, we can use this dependency. Let us take this dependency and configure this dependency in the pom.xml file. So this is our REST API application we created by using Maven. So pom.xml is available. This pom.xml is used to configure dependencies of our application. Okay, already we added some dependencies like web starter is available, dev tools is available, Jackson data format XML is available. So similar to this, let me add the dependency which is used for Swagger. Okay, if it is displaying in the red color, that means this dependency is not downloaded. So it is a newly added dependency. Then how to download this dependency? Go to the Maven build. Okay, let us reload this project. So Maven build should be happen. So then Maven is going to download. When you do the Maven build, Maven tool will communicate with the Maven central repository and it is going to download the dependency. Now you can see here, it is resolving the dependencies. Nothing but it is going to download the Swagger dependency. Spring Doc Open API Starter WebMVC UI. That is the dependency I'm adding in our pom.xml. Then Maven will check for the dependency in our local repository. If it is not available in the local repository, then Maven will connect with the central repository and will download that. Yes, Maven is able to download the dependency. That's it. I'm not adding any Swagger configuration class, nothing. The only thing is I am adding this dependency in the pom.xml. Add below dependency in the pom.xml and update Maven project. And update the Maven project, then it is going to download the dependency from the pom.xml. Then after this one, run the application and use below URL to access Swagger documentation. So what is the URL of our application? The application URL, which is http://localhost:/swagger-ui.html. So this is the URL in order to access Swagger documentation of our project. Okay, now I added Swagger documentation. I have not created any class, guys. There is no configuration class here. Just my REST controllers are available. That's it. There is no configuration class. So simply run this application now. Let us run this project. I'm running this application. Now, once this application is executed, I want to see that Swagger documentation. I want to see that Swagger documentation. Application is getting started. So it is starting from the main method, which is available in the start class, and it is using Apache Tomcat as a default container, which will run on the port number 8080. Running on the port number 8080, clear that. Now go here and let us try to access that documentation, guys. So what is the URL to access the documentation? Localhost:8080/swagger-ui. So when you hit this URL, now we are able to get the Swagger documentation. For our REST API, Swagger documentation is coming. In this Swagger documentation, it is going to tell you what all the REST controllers available in this application, and in that REST controller, what all the methods available also it is going to identify. So this is the Swagger documentation URL of our project. Now if I give this URL, anybody can understand what is there in my provider. So in my provider, book REST controller available. In that there are several methods available. Get method, post method, put method, delete method. Put method expecting book ID as a path parameter. Delete method is expecting book ID as a path parameter. Get method, no parameters required for the get method, and get two methods available, get book, get books, like that, multiple methods. Post method is expecting request body. Okay, and go to message REST controller. In the message REST controller, get method /welcome, get method /greet available. Product REST controller, get method product with the ID is available. So like this, there are 3 REST controllers available in our application. So anybody can easily understand about the provider. So who is our provider? Where is our provider? What services offered by the provider? What operations are allowed in the provider? That means what type of methods available in the provider? What is a request payload structure? What is a response payload structure? Everything we can understand by using this Swagger documentation. So what is the Swagger? Swagger is used to generate the documentation for our REST API. Okay, so REST API means a provider application. It is developed by some company. Now I want to develop the consumer for the provider. I want to access the services from the provider. In order to access the services from the provider, I should know about the provider. Who is my provider? Where is my provider? What is URL of my provider? What methods available in the provider? What type of request I need to send for the provider? What data I need to send in the request? What data I will get in the response? I should know all these details. If I know all these details, then only I can start my consumer development. Who will give me these details? How they will give me these details? Provider should give me the details. Then with those details, I can develop the consumer. How the provider will give those details for us? By using Swagger. What is the Swagger? Swagger is used to generate documentation for the REST API. Using Swagger UI, we can test a REST API. So as of now, we have tested the REST API by using Postman. Now, if you have Swagger, by using Swagger also, you can test the REST API. How to add the Swagger to our project? How to add the Swagger to our project? To add the Swagger to our project, just you add this dependency in the pom.xml. So in your Maven project pom.xml file, you just add this dependency, then you run your application. So you update the project so that Maven will download this dependency from the central repository. Once Maven is able to download this repository, then you run your application and you access Swagger documentation. So when you go for this Swagger documentation, it is giving the clear information. Book REST controller having 5 methods, message REST controller having 2 methods, product REST controller having 1 method. Let me go to book REST controller book method. It is a get request. Media type, controls accept header, controls accept header. You can accept the data in the JSON format. You can accept the data in the XML format, because in my method, I specified produce as XML and JSON. So the documentation is telling that, boss, you can send me a get request to /book URL, and you can consume the data you can take the data in the JSON format, or you can take the data in the XML. That means what response can be provided by that method, in which format the provider can give the response to the consumer, we can understand in this Swagger. Now click on try it out. What is the meaning of try it out? Try it out means try to send a request to that URL. Click on try it out. Click on execute. I send a request to this URL. I got the response in the XML format. Because I am sending the request with the accept header as application/XML. I'm sending the request with the application/XML. If I want JSON data, select JSON as media type. I'm selecting as JSON and click on try it out, execute. Now I am getting the response in the JSON. How provider will know that I want to response in the JSON? Accept is application/JSON. Accept is application/JSON. So like this, can we test the API from the Swagger also? Guys, can we test the API from the Swagger also?
Yes,
Could you
sir.
please confirm?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to test the REST API from the Swagger, or it is not possible to test the REST API from the Swagger?
It's possible.
It is possible. Now tell me, which is looking more good, Postman or Swagger?
Swagger is
Swagger.
looking.
Swagger. Why Swagger is good? Postman will not show you what methods available, what input you need to send, what output you will get. Swagger will not tell you. Sorry, Postman will not tell you. But when you go for Swagger, it is giving the complete information of the provider. Swagger is giving the complete information of the provider. So what are the REST controllers available? What are the methods available? What is the request URL pattern? What data we need to send in the request? In which format we can send the data? What data we will get in the response? In which format we can get? The complete provider information will be given by the Swagger. This is called documentation. So why we need this kind of documentation, guys? Because consumer is developed by some company. Now we need to develop, provider is developed by some company. Now we need to develop the consumer. In order to develop the consumer, I should know all this information. So I need the documentation of the provider. How the provider will give the documentation? By using Swagger. With the help of Swagger documentation, I will understand the provider and I will start my consumer development. Are you guys able to follow me?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, yesterday I have seen some other dependencies, sir. Spring Fox,
Yeah,
Swagger.
that is old approach. Spring Fox, Swagger UI, that is old approach. So in the latest approach, simply you can add this dependency. You no need to create any Java class also. Directly it will read your project and it will generate the documentation for your project.
But how do we know
Okay, sir.
provider has implemented the application with the Spring API dependency, sir? He may or may not, right?
Sir, it is going to, whenever you add this open API dependency, right? It is going to check your project. Is there any REST controllers available in the project? If REST controllers available, then it will read the REST controller. It will generate the documentation. Okay.
But consumer may or may not know the details of provider.
Sir, that is the reason this documentation comes into picture, sir. With this documentation, you need to understand the provider. You will get this kind of documentation from the provider.
Okay.
So with that, what is the main purpose of this documentation?
So they give the provider provider gives this information to consumer, right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, if I give this information to you, is it sufficient for you to understand my provider?
Yeah, that is sufficient, but it is under their agreement, right? Otherwise,
yes, correct.
Okay.
They will share this URL. They will share the Swagger URL to the consumer. Consumer will read that, and consumers will understand that. Based on that, consumer will develop the logic to access the provider.
Okay.
Okay. So I hope you got the clarity. What is the Swagger and why we are going for Swagger? Swagger is used to generate documentation for the REST API, and using this Swagger, we can test the REST API, guys. So how to add the Swagger to our project? To add the Swagger to the project, we are going to use this dependency, guys. In order to add the Swagger to the project, we are going to use this dependency. Okay. So once this dependency is added, you update your Maven project so that this dependency will be downloaded. Then you can run the application and you can access Swagger documentation URL. So with this documentation, you can understand the information about the provider, what methods available, what URLs available, what request you need to send, what response you will get, what data you need to send as a request, what data you will get as a response, in which format you need to send the payload, in which format you will get the payload. All the information you can identify. If you go to post request method, so in the post request method, it is expecting request body required. Request body is required for the post request. So in which format you can send that request body? They are telling that it will support JSON and XML. How this Swagger is showing me that request body can send in the JSON or XML? Because in our controller, in the post method, I have specified consumes XML and JSON. As I specified consumes is XML and JSON, that documentation is telling that boss, this method can take the request body in the JSON and XML. Method is having consumes JSON and XML, so you can send JSON data as an input, or you can send XML data as an input for the post request method. That is the meaning of this configuration. So that means this Swagger is reading our REST controller information based on this coding, whatever the code we have done. Based on this coding only, they generated this documentation. So with this documentation, consumer will know the provider details. Consumer can develop the logic to access the provider. Are you clear with my point?
Razorpay and Teachable, you Ashok IT interacted to get the.
They have given this kind of documentation for me.
They have given, right? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Without this documentation, I can't access them.
Yeah.
All right. So with this, we are able to understand what is the Swagger and why we are going for Swagger. In some companies, guys, Swagger will not be used. Some projects, especially in the banking applications, they don't maintain Swagger documentation. Then they will give you provider details in what document. This is my provider URL. This is method. Whatever the documentation is available here, same kind of information. They will prepare one Word document. They will prepare one PDF document and they will send it to you. So some projects, some providers will give you Swagger documentation. Some providers will give you manual documentation. What is the meaning of manual documentation? Guys, come on. What is the meaning of manual documentation?
The Word document, the requirement.
They will note down every information about the provider URL, provider name, provider URL, what methods available, what is the URL pattern, what is the request they are expecting, what is the response they can provide. So everything, all this information, they will note down in one Word document and they will send it to the consumer. In some companies, that process also there. So I have seen both. Some providers has given me Swagger documentation. Some providers has given me manual documentation in the real time. So it depends on the provider choice. Some people go with the Swagger, some people will go with the manual documentation. But for consumer, that provider documentation is required. Whether they are giving with the Swagger or whether they are giving with the manual, that's not important. Whether we are able to get the documentation or not. If you have the provider documentation, then only we can develop the consumer. How they will send that documentation? They will send the documentation URL in the email format. Mainly, you will get the provider documentation in the email. Swagger URL or manual document you will get. You need to read the document and you need to start the consumer development. Are you clear? So with this, we understood what is provider and how to develop a provider also. We got the clarity. So we started initially what is a web service. Okay, so we are coming to the conclusion. So we understood what is a distributed application summary, what we have learned so far in our classes. Coming to the summary, what we have learned so far in our classes. So in these classes, we understood what is distributed application. Can you guys tell me what is a distributed application? Come on, quickly if you respond. 5 minutes, complete revision we will do.
The application will provide the service.
Another application.
One application is communicating
What is
with
the meaning
another
of your
application.
I want
It's known
response
as
from all of you.
distributed
Open your
application.
mouth.
Business
What is the distributed
Distributed is
application?
nothing but B2B.
One application is communicating with another
So
application.
one application is communicating with the another application, that is called distributed applications. Why to develop distributed applications? Why to develop distributed applications, guys?
Business to business communication.
Business to business communication. As part of my business, I want to access some other concepts, some other implementations. Instead of I am developing everything, I want to reuse. Now Ashok IT application want to communicate with the payment gateway. Instead of developing my own payment gateway, I want to reuse the existing payment gateways in the market. To develop my own payment gateway, it will take a lot of time for me and I need to invest a lot of time. I need to invest a lot of money. So instead of I am doing that again, I want to reuse the logic which is already available in the market. Okay, so that's the reason to reuse the business services for B2B communication, we are going to develop distributed applications. When we are developing distributed applications, the main important thing is interoperability. What is the meaning of interoperability?
Language independent.
Language
Here,
independent.
applications should be able to communicate without thinking about the technology used to develop the projects. So one Python application should be able to talk to Java. Java application should be able to talk to .NET. .NET application should be able to talk to Java. Angular project should be able to talk to Java. React project should be able to talk to Java. So like this, here, interoperability, platform independent, language independent. When you are going for B2B communication, distributed applications, interoperability is very, very important. How to achieve interoperability, guys? How to achieve interoperability in the applications? How to achieve
By
interoperability?
JSON.
So,
JSON and XML.
Using JSON data and XML data. If you exchange the data, if you exchange the data in the form of objects, then you cannot achieve interoperability. So if you want to achieve interoperability, then you need to use JSON data and XML data. Okay, one application will send the JSON data to another application will send the JSON data. So consumer and provider will communicate by using JSON data, XML data. That JSON and XML are platform independent, language independent. Okay, so here we discussed about how to achieve interoperability, and we discussed about here how to work with JSON data and what is Jackson API. What is the JSON data and what is Jackson API also we understood. So can you tell me what is JSON data and what is the Jackson API? What is the JSON data and what is the Jackson API, guys? Come on.
By adding the dependency, our
JSON
object will
data
be
is
converted
language
to
independent.
JSON stands for JavaScript object notation, which will represent the data in the form of key and value. So in the Java, if you want to convert data to JSON, JSON to Java, Java to JSON. Direct support is not available. That's why we will use one third-party API, which is called Jackson API. Can you tell me what is the class which is available in the Jackson API to convert Java object to JSON, JSON to Java object?
Object map.
Object map.
Object mapper, write value, read value
Read value.
available. And the next one, we discussed about XML and JAXB. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language, that is used to exchange the data in the form of elements, represent the data in the form of elements. In the Java, you want to convert the Java object to XML, XML to Java object, marshalling, unmarshalling. So you need to perform marshalling and unmarshalling for that JAXB API. Up to 1.8 version, it is part of Java. From 1.8, it is removed. Now manually we need to add the JAXB dependency. Then after this, we discussed about HTTP protocol, guys. After this, we discussed about HTTP protocol. So what is the purpose of this HTTP protocol here? What is the purpose of this HTTP protocol?
You should transfer data over the network.
It is used as a mediator between consumer and provider. HTTP protocol is going to act as a mediator between consumer and provider. And we discussed about HTTP methods, and we discussed about HTTP status codes, and we discussed about HTTP request structure. What is the request format? And we discussed about HTTP response structure. Right, got it? So HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. It is used to establish the communication between consumer application and provider application. So whatever the conversation that is happening between the consumer and provider, HTTP protocol cannot remember. And HTTP methods, get method, post method, put method, patch method, delete method. Like this, there are several methods available. Get, post, put, patch and delete. Get, post, put, patch and delete. Like this, there are several methods available. Status codes, 5 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 means success, 4 means client problem, 5 means server problem. Like this, multiple status codes we are having. And request structure. When you go for the request structure, 3 formats available. One is request line is available, request header is available, request line, request header, and we are having request body also. And coming to response structure, status code plus status message will come. That is the response line. Status code, code plus message. What is the status code and what is the message of that? And we are going to get the response header, and we are going to get the response body. HTTP request structure, HTTP response structure is available. Request line, request header, request body. Response line, response header, response body. So like this, HTTP methods available, HTTP status codes available, HTTP request structure, HTTP response structure is also available. So we discussed about these concepts. Okay, so we understood what is a distributed application. So one application which is communicating with another application is called as distributed application. Why to develop distributed applications? B2B. One project want to reuse the services of another project. Then we are going to develop distributed applications. Okay, what is interoperability? Irrespective of the platform, irrespective of the technology, one project should be able to communicate with the other project. That is called interoperability. How to achieve that interoperability? By using JSON and XML data with the HTTP protocol, we are going to achieve interoperability. Okay, how to work with JSON? JSON data will represent in the form of key and value. To convert a Java object to JSON, JSON to Java object, we will use Jackson API. Similarly, some projects will use XML. How to convert a Java object to XML, XML to Java object, JAXB API. Then what is HTTP protocol? It is a stateless protocol. It is used to establish the communication between client and server. So when the client and server is communicating, what is the language required? get, post, put, patch, delete. HTTP language is required. So whenever you send a request to the server, server will send some response with a status code. So 5 categories available. 2 means success, 4 means client error, 5 means server error. Then HTTP request structure. How client will send a request to the server? By using request method and request URL. Then request header, request body. Okay, request line will contain method. What is the method? Plus what is the URL? What is the method you want to send? What is the URL you want to access? So get method to this URL, post method to this URL, like this. Which request you want to send, to which URL you want to send the request will represent by using request line. And the next one, request header. So what is the purpose of request header? Metadata plus some security tokens we can send. Consume content type header, accept header, like that. Consumer want to send some metadata to the provider, that we can send by using request header. Then what is the next one? Request body. So what is the purpose of request body? Request body is used to send the payload. So consumer want to send some data to the provider. That data is called as a payload. That payload we can send in the request body. And the next one, HTTP response structure. Response structure will, that means whatever the response we are getting from the provider. So it will contain the response line. So what is the status code and status message will be available. Response header will be available. Response body will be available. In the response body, again payload will be available. So after this, these all are the prerequisites to develop the REST API. After learning all these things, we have seen REST API architecture. We have seen REST API architecture. In this REST API architecture, we discussed about what is the provider and what is the consumer. So any application which is giving the services to other application is called as a provider application. How we will develop that provider? By using REST controller, we are going to develop the provider. Okay. Then next one, what is a consumer? Any application which is accessing other applications is called as a consumer. Then in order to develop the provider, we used one annotation called @REST controller. Okay. What is @REST controller? It is used to represent your Java class as a REST API. It is used to represent your Java class as a distributed component. @REST controller annotation will represent your Java class as a REST API. And in this REST controller development, we used one class called response entity class. What is the purpose of response entity? That is used to combine status code plus response body. What is the body you want to send? What is the message you want to send? That can be represented by using response entity. Okay. Then next one, we discussed about how to implement the REST API methods. REST API methods, HTTP methods. We implemented all HTTP methods: get, post, put, patch, delete. And when we are working with these REST API methods, we are going to deal with the query parameters and path parameters. So when we are sending the GET request, we need to send the data in the URL. So for that, we are going to use query params. For that, we will use the annotation called request param, key value. If you don't want to send in the key value, you want to send the direct value, then you will go for path variable annotation. And along with this, we also discussed about request body, how to read the data by using request body. And we also discussed about what is consumes and produces. Okay, when we are developing the REST API, we are going to use REST controller annotation. What is the purpose of REST controller? It is used to represent our Java class as a distributed component. Then in that REST controller, multiple methods we can write. Those are HTTP mapped methods. Every REST API method will be mapped to HTTP method. Get method, post method, put method, patch method, delete method. Then, so when you are sending the response, so what is the response data you want to send and what is the status code you want to send? that can be represented by using response entity class. Okay, and the next one, REST API methods. Okay, HTTP methods we implemented, and when we are developing the REST API methods, get method means consumer want to get the data. Post method means consumer want to send the data. Put method means consumer want to update. Delete means consumer want to delete. So when the get method is available, body they don't send na. That's why they will send the data in the URL by using query parameters and path parameters. To read the query parameters, we will use request param annotation. To read the path parameters, we will use path variable annotation. If a consumer sending huge amount of data, JSON data, XML data, secret data, sensitive data, then they will send the data in the request body. How to read the data from the request body? To read the data from the request body, we will use @request body annotation. So when we are developing the REST API methods, we will use media types, consumes and produces. So in which format you want to send the input, in which format you want to take the input, in which format you want to send the output, in which format you want to take the input. That will be represented by using consumes and produces. Consumes will represent input formats. Producers will represent output formats. Then next one, we discussed about accept and content type header. We discussed about accept and content type headers. Accept header is used to represent in which format consumer is expecting the response. Content type header is used to represent in which format consumer sending the request payload. Accept is used for response payload structure. Content type is used for request payload structure. Along with these things, we discussed about Postman. It is a tool API testing. Okay, and along with this, we also discussed about Swagger, which is used for documentation, API documentation, and Postman, which is used for API testing. Postman is used only for API testing. Swagger, it is used to provide API documentation and API testing also. API documentation plus API testing also we can perform by using Swagger. Okay, these many topics we have learnt in the REST API. Almost 22 topics. What is a distributed application? Why to develop distributed applications? What is interoperability? How to achieve interoperability? How to deal with JSON data in the Java application? How to deal with XML data in the Java application? What is the HTTP protocol? What are the methods available in the HTTP protocol? What are the status codes available in the HTTP? What is HTTP request structure? What is the HTTP response structure? What is the REST API? What is the provider? What is the consumer? And what is the REST controller? What is the response entity? What is the response entity class? How to develop the REST API methods here? And what are query parameters? What are the path parameters? What is @request body annotation? What is consumes and produces? How to use consumes and produces? What is accept and content type? What is Postman? How to do the API testing by using Postman? What is the Swagger? How to generate the documentation for the API by using Swagger? How to test the API by using Swagger? We are able to understand. Are you guys confident on all these topics? How much confidence I am having when I am teaching these concepts? After class is completed, you should get that confidence. Then only you can develop the application. Then only you can attend the interviews. So do you realize all these topics we have covered in the class? Did I cover all these topics or not?
Yes, sir.
Did I cover all these topics or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Are you, and a beautiful material also you got for all these topics. For every topic, only except today's topic, except the Swagger, the remaining everything I have added in the notes. A material also I have prepared for this one. By looking at that material, you can easily learn how to develop the REST APIs. I hope that material is very, very, very useful for your practice.
Yes, sir.
Good. How many days back our REST API class is started, guys? When we started this REST API class?
Before festival,
How many days? Almost 1 week or 10 days?
1 week. 1 week.
Within 1 week of time, you learnt these many concepts. Just 7 days, you learnt these many concepts. So you need to do the practice also. If you just attend the class now, then there is no problem. If you just attend the class now, there is no use. You need to do the practice also, and you should be able to develop these applications on your own. You should be able to develop these applications on your own. What is a distributed application? Why distributed applications? How to deal with JSON data? How to deal with XML data? How to develop the API methods? And I have given one project also for you. Okay, CRUD operations, Spring REST plus REST API with the REST API project. REST API project to perform CRUD operations using data JPA. So whatever the concepts we have learned, all these concepts we have implemented in one project, that is used to perform CRUD operations with the database by using data JPA. I don't know how many of you completed that task. I don't know how many of you completed that task. Still, anybody not completed? If you are not doing that task now, then it is your bad luck. I can't do anything. All the topics I explained, on these all topics I have given was an assignment. If you are not interested to do the assignments, then you are the loser. I will not lose anything. You are the loser. I told you what is the requirement, and I gave the video also how to implement that requirement. After that also, if you are not doing, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता हूँ. I can't do anything. I'm helpless. You need to realize what is the importance of that. Okay, from these 23 topics, do you have any questions? Because now we are going to start part 2 of our movie. Bahubali part 1 is completed now. Now we are going for Bahubali part 2. Part 2 is consumer development. Provider development is completed. Provider testing is completed. Provider documentation also we are able to generate. So with this provider documentation, now we should learn the consumer development. That is part 2 of the movie. And what is the climax of the movie? Movie climax is microservices. Part 1, part 2, climax. That climax this Saturday and Sunday. Saturday 3 hours, Sunday 3 hours, we have climax scene. That is microservices. So don't miss that Saturday, Sunday. If you have any plan, please cancel that. This Saturday, Sunday is very important for you. And you see, have you seen how many people registered for this Sunday workshop? Guys, did you check it? How many people registered for this Sunday workshop? Did you see the count?
Near 1,000 something.
How many people?
Around 1,500.
Around 1,500 people registered for this workshop. So what is the meaning of that? Why these many people registered? Why these many people registered?
Because that is an important topic.
That is important topic. Without that microservices, you can't get the job, you can't develop the project. As that is important topic, these many people registered. I also got surprised. I expected 300 to 400 because for the previous Java 8 workshop and for this Spring Boot workshop, around 400 people registered. So I expected 400 to 500 people will come. But yesterday, by looking at this count, I got surprised. 1,500 people registered as of now. It will reach to 2,000 in another 2 days of time. There is no doubt about it. Around 2,000 people are going to attend this microservices workshop. So that much important. You need to realize what is the importance of that.
Sir,
If that is not important, why these many people will register? So there is a demand. There is a demand for that. And definitely that is going to be a blockbuster movie on this Saturday and Sunday. Microservices concepts with one mini project development.
Sir, can we get the recording for this event?
Yeah, first you attend the live session, man. Why to think about recording?
Because the event registration is completed, I think, right? So not
No, you
allowing.
can register now. You can register. This is the link I'm sharing in the chat box. You can register.
Sir, class link will be same only.
I will share that link for you people. Okay.
Yes.
Zoom link. Once you register, you will get the link to your email. I have given the link in the chat box. You can register now.
Sir, we are the already full stack developers, no? Even though
You will
we
get
need to
that is what I'm
register.
telling you, madam. You will get the link to your email. You will get that link to your email.
Ashok, could you please give us the recordings as well? Because this Saturday I have an interview, so I have to go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And the class is at morning 8 to 10 a.m. only. So you can, if you have time, you can attend.
Yeah, I
Because
will
live session is
join.
always interesting.
How much I can complete in live session. But if something is missed, then I have to catch up.
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's very, very important, guys. Don't miss. If you have any other, if you have any other plans now, please try to postpone your plans because that session is going to be, if you have interview, then you can't postpone it. So that is exceptional. If any other plans, friends के साथ घूमना है, घर जाना है, movie जाना है, so you can postpone such kind of plans and please attend this session.
Sir,
Okay, good.
Sir, for Spring Boot batch, same link will you use, na?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
I will update the new link in the website. So tomorrow, once our session is completed, that workshop link I will update for you in the portal. Okay, you can join how you are joining the daily class now. So Saturday class also you can join in the same way.
Okay.
The new link I will update.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Sir, this 2 days will complete microservice or will extend?
Sorry?
In these 2 days will complete microservices, sir?
No,
or
sir.
will...
Microservices will not complete in 2 days. In 2 days, so you will get the understanding of what is microservices, how to develop microservices, one small project you are going to develop. Okay. So with these 2 days, microservices will not complete. 20% to 30% will be completed.
Can you add the exception handling?
Yes, sir. We will handle also. With these 2 days, our course is not going to complete.
Sir, how many days it will require to complete service?
So these 2 days, we are going to start the microservices. Then after, whatever pending is there, how to handle exceptions, how to implement security, how to implement Kafka, how to implement Redis, we are going to learn.
Sir, can Zoom sustain this many number of people, sir?
Sorry?
Can Zoom sustain this many number of people?
I will give the YouTube live also. I have the limit of 1,000 people in the Zoom. If required, I can increase that also. And YouTube live also will run.
Yeah, I see like the business only is offering like 1,000 participants.
Huh.
How are you handling this much traffic? So I wonder.
Okay, we'll see that how it will happen. And it is going to be, I think, one of the most strengthful session. Last time I have seen 850 people in one session for the Jenkins class, and this class is going to beat that, I think so. Already 1,500 people registered. In that 1,500, approximately 1,000 people will come. 500 people bhul jayega. They will sleep on the weekend. They will not wake up. By the time they wake up, session will be completed.
Sir, how many days it will take to complete, sir? This total course.
Come on.
Sir, for Saturday, Sunday, will develop that consumer part?
No, sir. Consumer part, today and tomorrow we are going to develop, not Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, okay, sir. Yeah.
Before coming to Saturday, Sunday, you need to understand consumer.
Okay, okay, sir. Got it.
So here, I have given the summary of the classes, whatever we have learnt in 1 week. So you need to feel very grateful because within 1 week of time, you learnt a lot of content.
Yes, sir.
That is very, 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 very important in order to develop the projects in the real time. Okay, so REST API project to perform the CRUD operation, all these topics we discussed in order to develop the provider. So once this provider development is completed, now we need to start our consumer development. Once the provider development is completed, now we need to start our consumer development. Already you know the introduction part for what is a consumer and what is the role of the consumer in the application. So what is the role of the consumer, guys? What is consumer and what is the role of the consumer?
Consumer will access the
The application which is accessing services from other applications is called as consumer application. Okay, any application which is accessing services from other applications is called as consumer application. The application which is accessing services from other applications is called as consumer application. Are you clear with my point? Okay, so in order to develop the consumer in the Spring Boot, there are 3 approaches available. Using Spring Boot, we can develop consumer in 3 ways. What are those 3 ways, guys? One of the approach is by using REST template approach, and second approach is by using web client approach, and the third approach is by using FEN client approach. So in the initial sessions, in the documentation also, I have given, in the material I have given that point. In order to develop the consumer, there are 3 ways available. One is by using REST template, and another one is by using web client, and the third one is by using FEN client. If you open our REST API material, so I have given the documentation in how many ways we can develop the consumer by using Spring Boot. So provider and consumer, we completed provider development. The application which is giving the services to other applications is called as provider application, and the application which is accessing the services from the other application is called as a consumer application. So how many ways we can develop the provider and consumer? In order to develop the provider, directly we are creating the REST controller. So this is the diagram. So in this diagram, I explained how many ways we can develop the provider, how many ways we can develop the consumer. So to develop the provider, we are using REST controller, and to develop the consumer, there are 3 ways available. One is by using REST template, another one is by using web client. One is by using REST template, another one is by using web client. Sir, what is this REST template, web client, and FEN client? So this REST template is a class that supports synchronous communication. When you are developing a consumer by using REST template, what is this REST template? REST template is a predefined class available in the Spring Web MVC. By using this REST template, we can develop a consumer which will support for synchronous communication. Then what is this web client? Web client is a interface, guys, that is going to support for asynchronous communication. It is used for asynchronous communication. This web client introduced in the Spring 5.x version, it is going to support for asynchronous communication. And what is a FEN client? FEN client, it is related to Spring Cloud concept, guys. It supports inter-service communication. Basically, when we are going to develop the microservices, one microservice want to communicate with the another microservice. So one microservice communicating with the another microservice, nothing but inter-service communication. In order to implement inter-service communication, we are going to use FEN client concept. In the Sunday session, FEN client example will be covered. Okay, so here we are going to start the second part of the REST API, which is consumer development. So what is the meaning of consumer development? Any application which is accessing services from other applications is called as consumer application. How many ways we can develop that consumer in the Spring Boot? To develop the consumer in the Spring Boot, there are 3 ways available. One is by using REST template, another one is by using web client, and the third one is FEN client. Okay, what is the difference between this REST template, web client, and FEN client? REST template is a predefined class in the Spring Web MVC. It is going to support only synchronous communication. REST template is a predefined class. It is a predefined class available. It is a predefined class in Spring web MVC module. It is a predefined class available in the Spring MVC module. It supports only synchronous communication. We will understand what is that synchronous communication. So currently, you remember, there is an approach called REST template, which is used to develop the consumer. So REST template is what? It is a predefined class available in the Spring Web MVC module, and it is going to support only synchronous communication. And the next one, web client. What is web client? Web client introduced in Spring 5.x version. Web client introduced in the Spring 5.x version, and it is part of Spring Web Flux, not web guys. It is part of Spring Web Flux. It is interface. Web client interface introduced. Web client interface. It is a predefined interface. It introduced in the Spring 5.x version, and it is part of Spring Web Flux. REST template is part of Spring Web MVC, whereas web client is part of Web Flux. It supports both synchronous and asynchronous communication. It supports both synchronous and asynchronous communication. It is going to support both synchronous and asynchronous communication. So what is synchronous? What is asynchronous? We will understand. Next, what is the third option we have? The third option that we have, which is FIAN client. FIAN client is a part of Spring Cloud libraries. FIAN client is part of Spring Cloud libraries. Okay, it supports inter-service communication. It supports inter-service communication. Okay, so in the REST API, guys, provider is available, consumer is available. We completed our provider development, and these are the concepts we have learnt in the provider development. And the next, we are starting with the consumer development. So what is consumer? The application which is accessing the services from other applications is called as consumer application, and we can develop the consumer in 3 ways. One is by using REST template, another one is by using web client, third one is by using FIAN client. REST template is a predefined class in the Web MVC module. It supports only synchronous communication. And what is the alternate for the REST template now? Web client. REST template is outdated in the market. Currently, people are going for web client. What is the meaning of web client? Web client interface introduced in the Spring 5.x version, and it is part of Web Flux module. So this Web Flux is going to support both the synchronous communication as well as asynchronous communication. And there is a third approach available to develop the client consumer, which is called FIAN client. What is this FIAN client? FIAN client is part of the cloud library. It supports inter-service communication. FIAN client is part of cloud libraries, and it is going to support inter-service communication. Are you clear with my point? So FIAN client is part of Spring Cloud libraries, and it is support for inter-service communication. Okay, so what is the meaning of synchronous communication and what is the meaning of asynchronous communication? What is the meaning of synchronous communication? REST template will support only for synchronous, whereas web client will support for synchronous plus asynchronous. What is the meaning of synchronous? Synchronous means after sending the request to the provider, if a consumer is waiting for the response, then it is called synchronous communication. What is the meaning of that? Here, I'm having my provider application. And there is a consumer application available. So this is my provider, and there is a consumer application is available. Provider application and consumer application is available. So consumer will send the request for the provider, and the consumer will wait for the response. For example, here multiple lines of code available. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like this, there are multiple lines of code is available here. Multiple lines of code is available in the consumer application. So in the consumer application, what we have done is, in the line number 2, we send the request to the provider. Then line number 3 will not execute immediately. Line number 3 will not execute immediately because consumer send a request to the provider. So consumer will be blocked until we get the response from the provider. That is called synchronous. So consumer application is sending a request to the provider, and consumer application will wait for the response from the provider. If a provider taking 3 seconds of time to give the response, my consumer thread will be waiting for the response. After getting the response, then only my thread will continue the execution, because I'm sending a request for the provider and I'm waiting for the response. After getting the response from the provider, then only I will continue my execution. So in the line number 2, we are sending a request to the provider. Consumer application developed. Inside the consumer, there is a logic. That logic, line number 2, sending a request to the provider. Provider is taking that request, processing that request, sending the response. To do that, 3 seconds of time. So consumer should wait that 3 seconds. After getting the response, then only we will continue our execution. That is called synchronous communication. So what is the synchronous communication? After sending request to the provider, if a consumer is waiting for the response, then it is called synchronous communication. So when you develop a consumer by using REST template, it will support only synchronous communication. That means if you send a request to the provider by using REST template, then a REST template should wait for the response. After getting the response, then only we will continue. Are you able to follow me? What is the meaning of synchronous communication? Guys, are you able to understand what is the meaning of synchronous communication?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, what is the meaning of synchronous communication?
Consumers waiting for response.
Consumer application is communicating with the provider application. Consumer will send a request to the provider, HTTP request to the provider. Provider is taking 3 seconds to process. Then consumer will wait those 3 seconds. After getting the response, then only I will forward. After getting the response, then only I will forward further to execute the remaining lines of code. 10 lines of code is available. In the second line, we are sending a request. So after sending the request, immediately third line will not execute. Second line, send a request. It will wait at the second line only, because provider should give the response. After getting the response from the provider, then my third line will execute. So that is called synchronous communication. So when you go for REST template, that means you are developing a synchronous based consumer. Your consumer will work based on the synchronous approach. So consumer will send the request, consumer will wait for the response. Are you guys able to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Are you guys able to follow me? Yes. Then what is asynchronous communication, guys? What is the meaning of asynchronous communication now? Come on.
Consumer
Like, will not wait for the
No
response.
need wait for
Consumer not ready.
Consumer won't wait
After
for the
sending the request to the provider, if a consumer is not waiting for the response, then it is called as asynchronous communication. My consumer will send the request to the provider and no need of waiting. I will continue my execution. Whenever response comes, then I will handle that response. I will not wait for that. Whenever the response comes from the provider, I will handle that response, but I will not be waiting for the response. So that is called asynchronous communication. So here when you go for REST template, it will support only synchronous communication. When you go for web client, it supports both the synchronous communication as well as asynchronous communication. So that's why in the market, in the real time, when we compare REST template and web client, web client is having more demand than REST template. REST template is outdated because it will support only synchronous communication. If you go for web client, it will support for both synchronous as well as asynchronous also. That is one famous interview question. What is the difference between REST template and web client? This is the difference. REST template will support for synchronous communication. Web client will support for both synchronous as well as asynchronous communication. Are you able to follow me? Yes. How many ways are there to develop a consumer, and what is the difference between them? Can you tell me now?
There are three ways, sir. One is a REST template, another one is a web client. A REST template through it is a synchronous communication will happen. Like client will send request to the service provider, then next it will wait for the response. So it is one. It will wait till response. After that, execution will continue. So this is a REST template communication. Second way is web client. This is supporting both synchronous and asynchronous. So I don't know how it is working.
Yeah, PN client is there. PN client is used for microservices, inter-service communication. That is part of our Spring Cloud concepts. Okay, so are you clear with what is synchronous and what is asynchronous now? And who will support for only synchronous? Who will support for both synchronous and asynchronous? You got the clarity now? Guys, you got the clarity now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
One question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, sir, like in the case of asynchronous, right? On the third line, if the REST API call is happening,
I will come to that. So I understand your question. I have not completed my discussion. I will come to that.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Now we understood that synchronous communication is available, asynchronous communication is available. Now, which one is recommended? Now, which one is recommended?
It's dependent on the requirement, sir.
It depends on the requirement. Okay, so always we don't go for asynchronous communication. Always we don't go for synchronous communication. It is depends on the requirement whether you need to implement synchronous communication or asynchronous communication in the project. So it depends on the scenario, guys. Sometimes we will go with the synchronous communication. Sometimes we will go with the asynchronous communication. Let me tell you the scenario. I am having one REST API. I'm having one REST API. Sorry, I'm having one consumer application, guys. I'm having one consumer application. My consumer application want to get the data from two providers. Provider 1 and another one is provider 2 available. Provider 1 is related to income tax API. Based on the PAN card, I want to get the income tax details of the candidate. And there is another provider is available, and this is a Aadhaar API. And this is a Aadhaar API. So these are two providers. One is income tax API and another one is Aadhaar API. So income tax API that is going to take the PAN card as an input and it will give the tax details of the candidate based on the PAN card. And the next one, Aadhaar card API is available. It will take Aadhaar number as an input and it will give the candidate address details. You understand my point? I'm developing one project. So in this project, I want to access the services from income tax department and I want to access the services from Aadhaar card department. So I will send candidate PAN card number as an input, okay, and I will get the income tax details of the candidate based on the PAN card number. Then here I will send Aadhaar card number details as an input and I will get the address details of the candidate. So can I say one consumer is communicating with the two providers now? Can I say this? One consumer is communicating with the two providers now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now here if you observe, this is my first communication and this is my second communication. Okay, first provider, second provider. Is there any relation between provider 1 and provider 2? Guys, is there any relation between the provider 1 and provider 2?
No, sir.
Now, generally what will happen? After sending the request to the income tax API, my consumer should wait for the response. After getting the response, then I should go to the Aadhaar API. I should get the response. Then I need to complete the logic. But here, the question is, when I send the request to the income tax API, why should I wait for the response? Immediately, can I send the request to Aadhaar card API also? Because there is no dependency, right? Send this request and send this request. Both requests, if I send without waiting, then my response, the processing time will be reduced. There is no dependency. My consumer want to access income tax data and citizen address data. Income tax data I will get from income tax API. Address data I will get from Aadhaar API. So is there any need of waiting after sending the request to the income tax department API? Is there any need of waiting for the response to send the request for Aadhaar, or without waiting also I can send the request for the Aadhaar?
No need of waiting also.
Without waiting also, you can send the request for
Both
Aadhaar.
are independent.
Do I need to wait for the income tax response to send the request for the Aadhaar, or no need of waiting for the response?
No need of waiting.
No need of waiting, right?
Yes.
Is there any need of waiting or no need of waiting?
No need of
No need
waiting.
of waiting.
No need of waiting. So in this scenario, if I go for synchronous communication, what is the problem? After sending the first request, I should wait for the response. It may take 3 seconds or 4 seconds of time to get the response. 4 seconds I have to wait. Then I need to send the request for Aadhaar. It will take another 4 seconds. Again I have to wait. So total it will take 8 to 10 seconds of time to complete the request of end user. Is it recommended?
No.
In this scenario, we should go for asynchronous communication. You understand my point?
Yes.
In this scenario, we should go for asynchronous communication. That means after sending the request to the income tax API, without waiting for the response, I will proceed further and I will send the request for Aadhaar card API also. Then my time will be saved. My time will be saved.
Yeah.
So now, if you go for, if you develop this consumer by using REST template, then what is the problem? If I develop this consumer by using REST template, then what is the problem?
It needs
It only supports
If I
internal
develop this consumer by using REST template, then what is the problem?
Time taken process.
And complexity increase.
Yes. So we need to wait for the response. We need to wait for the response because that REST template na it will support only for that REST template na will support only for synchronous communication. So with this synchronous communication na time will be wasted. With this synchronous communication our time will be wasted. Are you able to follow this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so in this scenario, asynchronous communication is recommended. In this scenario, asynchronous communication is recommended. Asynchronous communication is recommended. This is asynchronous communication use case. After sending the request for the income tax API, without waiting for that response, you can send the request to Aadhaar card API. There is no problem. There is no dependency. There is no dependency. So then you can go for asynchronous communication operation here. So to achieve that asynchronous communication, how you need to develop the consumer, guys? REST template consumer or web client consumer?
Web client.
REST template consumer or web client consumer we need to develop?
Web client. Consumer.
Sorry.
Web client.
Web client.
Web client.
Okay. Now let me go for another scenario. Let me go for another scenario. This is synchronous communication use case. So there is one there is one API is available which is called city zip code API, guys. There is one API called zip code API is available, and there is another API called weather API is available. Okay. So there is a zip code API and there is a weather API. Now, if I give city name as a input for this one, then it will send the zip code as a output for me. I will send my city name, then I will get the zip code as a output. Then I will give zip code as a input for the weather API, then it will give me temperature data as a output. Now you tell me, synchronous required or asynchronous required?
Synchronous required.
Synchronous required or asynchronous required?
Synchronous.
Synchronous required. Why synchronous required?
Both are
Without
dependent.
zip code, we can't dependent on zip code.
First, I need to get the zip code. Without zip code, I can't access weather API. Who will give me the zip code? First API. So first I will send from my consumer application. From my consumer application, I will send the city name as the input for the zip code. So zip code API. Then it will give the zip code of my city. That zip code, whatever the response I am getting from the first API, that I will send as an input for the second API, then I will get the temperature. So here, do I need to wait for the first provider response, or I don't need to wait for the first provider response?
Need to wait first.
Need to wait for first provider
Do I need to wait or no need to wait?
Need to wait.
We need to wait for the first provider response. You need to wait for the first provider response. So if you want to wait for the first provider response, then synchronous communication should be implemented or asynchronous communication should be implemented.
Synchronous.
Synchronous communication should be implemented or asynchronous communication should be implemented.
Synchronous communication.
Synchronous communication. So who is supporting for synchronous communication?
REST template.
Only REST template or web client also?
Web client also.
Web client also.
So that means web client is supporting for both synchronous communication, asynchronous communication. So if you are having a web client which supports both, then is there any use of REST template?
No use of REST template.
That's why REST template is outdated. Currently in the market, people are using web client because whatever we can do by using REST template now, same thing we can do by using web client also. That's why REST template is outdated. People are going for web client. It will support for both the synchronous communication as well as asynchronous communication. Are you clear with my point? When to go for synchronous communication and when to go for asynchronous communication?
When
Now tell
services
me,
are dependent
synchronous
each
communication
other,
is
then
recommended
we go
or
for
asynchronous
synchronous
communication is recommended?
When services are independent, then we will go
Synchronous
for
communication is recommended or asynchronous communication is recommended, guys?
Based on the requirement.
based on
That
requirement.
is depends on the requirement. That is depends on the requirement, guys. Whether synchronous communication is recommended or asynchronous communication is recommended, that is completely depends on the requirement. Okay, now good. So with this we understood what is consumer, how many ways available in order to develop the consumer. How many ways available to develop the consumer? So the application which is accessing services from other applications is called as consumer application. So using Spring Boot, we can develop the consumer in 3 ways: REST template, web client, FIAN client. REST template is a predefined class available in the WebMVC module. It supports only synchronous communication. Then what is web client? Web client interface introduced in the Spring 5.x version and it is part of Spring Web Flux. It supports both synchronous and asynchronous communication. Then what is FIAN client? FIAN client is part of Cloud Library. It supports inter-service communication. What is the meaning of inter-service? One REST API want to access another REST API in the microservices. Okay, that is Saturday session, Sunday, Saturday. Okay, good. Next, synchronous communication. After sending the request to the provider, consumer sending a request to the provider. After sending request to the provider, if a consumer is waiting for the response, then it is called as synchronous communication. So what is asynchronous communication? After sending request to provider, consumer is not waiting for the response, then it is called as asynchronous communication. Depends on the requirement, we can use both the synchronous and asynchronous communication in our projects. So in the projects we will have scenarios. Sometimes we will go with the synchronous, sometimes we will go with asynchronous. It depends on the requirement. Whether we should use synchronous client or asynchronous client, it depends on project requirement. Whether we need to use sync client or async client depends on project requirement. So in my project, I have seen both the synchronous clients as well as asynchronous clients. So when I say client, consumer client, both are same guys. Sometimes I'm calling as a client, sometimes I'm calling as a consumer, both are same. Okay, good. So theoretically, are you clear what is consumer, how to develop consumer, and what are the different ways available, and what is the difference between REST template and web client? Theoretically, you got the clarity?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions as of now? Now, in order to develop a consumer, what is required for us? Directly, can I go and develop the consumer, or I need some data in order to develop a consumer?
Need provider data.
So if I want to develop a consumer, what is the first important thing?
API.
API.
Provider should be ready. If I want to develop the consumer, what is required, guys?
Provider.
Provider is ready. What is provider? What is consumer?
So
We understand what is consumer, how to develop consumer. Now I want to develop the consumer. In order to develop the consumer, what is required for us?
Provider service should be there.
Provider is required. Only provider is required, or provider documentation is also required?
Documentation.
Provider is required and provider documentation is also required for us. Provider is required and provider documentation also required for us. Are you guys able to understand my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you guys able to understand my point? We need a provider and we need provider documentation also. So without having the provider documentation, can you develop this? Without provider documentation, can we develop this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. Without provider documentation, we cannot develop this. Now, I will give you one simple provider for practice. Just we need to start our consumer development. First time we are going to develop a consumer. So initially today, I will give you one simple provider, and tomorrow we will work with the complex providers. Complex provider means which will take input, which will give the output. So today I'm giving one simple provider URL for you. So I'm giving one URL in the chat box. Can you click on that URL and can you see? Can you click on that URL and can you see? What is that? What is happening when you click that URL?
Hello, what is Spring Boot?
What is happening when you click that URL?
The word from Spring Boot.
So we are getting one simple message as a response. So is it giving the UI page as a response, or is it giving the direct message as a response?
Direct message.
Is it giving the UI page as a response, or it is giving a direct message as a response?
Direct message.
It is giving direct message as a response. Can I say it is a REST API?
Yes, sir.
Can I say it is a REST API?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it running in my system, or it is not running in my system?
My system.
Is that API? Where is that API? Do you know where is that API?
No, sir.
It is third party. Somebody developed that API. It is a third party API. Somebody developed that API. We don't know where is that API. Now I want to access that API. So I know API URL and I want to send a GET request to that URL. If I send a GET request to that URL, it is giving some response as a text message. Some message I am getting as a response. Now I want to develop one consumer application, and in that consumer application, I want to write the logic to send HTTP GET request to this URL. I want to develop one consumer application. That consumer application should send the GET request to this URL and get the response and print that response on the console. That's it. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Are you clear with my point?
Yes, sir.
Guys, come on. Are you clear with my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Yes. So let me create the consumer development. Okay? Consumer application development. This is dummy provider, sir. There is no documentation, nothing. Just we need to send a GET request and we are getting the response. This is a dummy provider. So tomorrow I will give you the real provider, which will give you the documentation, and that documentation we need to understand and we need to develop the consumer. Okay, consumer application development. Create Spring Boot application. Create a Spring Boot application with the web starter. Okay, then create service class to access provider application. To access provider API using REST template. So this is provider URL, dummy provider, guys. Provider URL. So call the service method in the start class for testing. Call the service method in start class for testing purpose. Just 3 simple steps I'm going to do. Consumer application development. So how to develop a consumer? Create Spring Boot application with web starter. So when you use web starter, in the web starter, REST template is already available. What is this REST template, guys? REST template is a predefined class in the WebMVC module. If you want to use a web client, then you need to use a WebFlux starter. But currently we are going with REST template, one example. So WebMVC sufficient, web starter. Okay. So consumer application development. So what is the process? Create a boot application with web starter. Then in that web starter, you will get the REST template class. By using that REST template class, you can send a GET request to this URL, provider URL, GET request URL. So you send that GET request URL, then it will give us some response. Then you print that response on the console for time, because this is first consumer we are developing. So you can test this provider from the Postman also. Okay. So this is my Postman tool. So this is the URL I have given you. Click on send. GET request I'm sending to this URL. I'm getting the response from the provider, 200 status code. Okay. Request is successful. Server responded as required. So I'm able to send the request from the Postman, but I don't know who developed that REST API. And I don't know where is that REST API. I found that URL in the internet. So by using that URL, to that URL, I'm able to send a GET request from the Postman. Now I want to send that GET request from my application. My Java application should send that GET request. If my Java application is sending a GET request to that URL, then my Java application is called as consumer application. Able to follow me? If my Java application is sending a GET request to that URL, then my Java application is called as consumer application. Able to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Provider is somewhere, that is in the internet. We don't know who developed it, but I got the URL from the internet. For practice purpose, I am using that URL, and by using that URL, I will develop my consumer and I will access that provider Okay, so how to develop this consumer? Create boot application with web starter and create service class to access provider API using REST template. Create Spring Boot application with web starter and create service class to access provider API by using REST template, and this is my provider URL. Then call that service method in the start class for the testing purpose. Can we do that now?
Yes.
Guys, can we do that now?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes. So okay, let's try. File. Okay, now I'm using IntelliJ. What is the problem with the IntelliJ now? Can I create the project directly here?
No, sir.
We have to decide.
What I need to do?
Analyze the
Site.
start
Spring
Go
initializer.
to start.spring.io,
Go to STS.
Maven. Okay, group ID, that is in.ashok IT. I'm using 02 Spring Boot consumer application. 02 Spring Boot consumer application. Package name in.ashok IT I'm using. Packaging type is jar and Java version 17 I'm using. Okay. So Java Maven project I'm using, guys. Maven project we are using. Language is Java. Boot version 3.3.3 and package name is in.ashok IT. Packaging type is jar. Java version 17. Click on generate. So it is generating the project. Oh my God, I had done a mistake. What is the mistake? Dependency not added, right? Let's add the dependency. What is the dependency we need to add? Web starter dependency added. Click on generate. Only web starter dependency you need to add. Yes, I have created the project. Let me go to the downloads. I got my project consumer app. Extract that zip file. Extract consumer app. Okay. Now let me import this project into my IDE. Classes 45 SDMS and workspace 02 Spring Boot consumer app. Okay, then file, import the project, open the project. 02 project I need to open. Yeah, 02 consumer app. Okay, trust this project. In this window only I am going to open. Yes, so with this I'm able to get the second project, that is my consumer application. So this is a Maven project. Load this Maven project. Guys, just give me 2 minutes. It will be completed. Yes. Now go to the application. Then let me create one service class. New Java class. Any name you can give. I'm giving as message service. I'm giving this class name as a message service class. I want to represent this as a service. So let me use this as @service, message service. And let me write one method called public void get message. Public void get message. Who is giving the message? From where we need to get the message, guys?
Provider.
Provider. Do you know provider URL?
Yes.
Do you know provider URL? Private static final. Private static final. Provider URL. I'm using this. Private static final. String. Private static final. String provider URL. So I'm taking my provider URL. This is in the Postman. Yes. Is it our URL or it is a third party URL?
Third party.
Third party URL.
Third party URL. Now I want to send a GET request to this URL and I want to get the response. So how to send a GET request to this URL and how to get the response from that? So that's where we are going to use one class. What is that class, guys? REST template RT is equal to new REST template. So REST template is a predefined class. Where this class is available? In the Spring Web MVC. At the time of creating the project, I have selected a web starter. So in the web starter, REST template is a predefined class. Now let's go to the REST template. rt dot get for entity. What is the method? What is the method available?
Get for entity.
Come on, guys. What is the method?
Get for entity.
Get for entity. What is the meaning of get for entity? What is the meaning of get for entity?
Take URL.
It is used to send a get request to the URL. Which URL? Provider URL. What is the response it is giving you? Some string. Store that into string variable. String.class. That's it. This method is available in the REST template class. What is the REST template? REST template is a predefined class which is available in the web module. So in this REST template, there is a get for entity method. I'm using that method to send a get request to this URL. That URL is giving some response. That response I'm storing into my variable, which is a string.class. Then it will return one object, guys. Response will come in the form of object. That object is response entity object. What is the object it is giving, guys?
Response entity object.
Response entity. Now from here, from entity dot getter, you can get the status code. What is the status code they are giving you? Okay. And you can get the body also. For entity dot getter body also. You are getting the status code and you are getting the body. For now, let me print it. System dot out dot println. What is the status code I am getting in the response? Okay. Status code dot value. What is the status code I am getting? And system dot out dot println response message. What is the response payload I am getting? Response body. So that body is I'm storing into string variable. They're giving the string message. Already I tested from this one, from the Postman. They're giving some text data. So that text data I want to store into one variable. So that's why I'm creating object for the REST template. REST template rt is equal to new REST template. REST template dot get for entity. So I have created object for the REST template class and I'm calling get for entity method. For that method, I am passing two parameters. One is the URL of the provider and another one is string.class. What is the response you are getting from the provider? That response I want to store into string variable. Then for entity.get status code, I'm getting the status code from the response entity. I'm getting the response body. I'm printing that status code. I'm printing the response body to understand really, am I able to send a get request from my application or not? If I am able to send the get request from my application, then I can say my provider is responding and my consumer logic is working. This is third-party provider and this is my consumer logic. From the Java application, we are sending HTTP GET request. To send that HTTP GET request, we are using REST template. REST template will support synchronous communication. How we are using REST template? It is available in the Web MVC module. So I added web starter. Look at this logic now. Are you guys able to understand this logic?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is a message service class. Let me call this method from start class. Okay, this is our start class. Okay, inside the start class, I will inject that message service class, guys. How to inject it? Can you do auto wiring?
Yes, sir. Auto app.
Can we do auto wiring?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, this is a auto wiring object. You can do auto wide. And here I can call message service dot get message. That's it. I'm just calling this. Or else let's do one thing. No need of auto wiring. Run method. What is the return type of run method, guys? What is the return type of run method?
Configurable application context.
What is the return type of run method?
Configure application
Configurable application
By
context.
using this context, can I get the service object?
Yes, sir.
Bean method.
Context dot
Get bean.
get bean. What is our class?
Message service dot class.
Message service dot class. Okay, I got the message service bean. Message service bean dot get message.
Get method.
So what that get message method is doing? It is calling third party API. How we are calling the third party API? By using REST
REST
template.
template.
Whatever the response we are getting from the third party API, we are just printing on the console. So this is the logic to send a GET request from the consumer. Earlier, same thing we have done from the postman. So earlier we used postman as a consumer. Now my Java application is going to act as a consumer. Are you clear?
Yes.
Are you guys clear now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Come on, guys. Any confusion in
Yes,
this
sir.
logic?
No, sir.
No.
Now let me run this application and see the console. Are we getting the response from the third party API or not? I'm running my consumer application. Consumer is a Spring Boot application. And it is accessing provider. Provider is not our application. It is developed by some company. We don't know who is that. Yes, my application starting. Start class will be executed. Inside the start class, I am calling the service method. Can you see, guys? What is this? Are you able to get the response?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What is the status code we are getting?
200.
200. What is the response body we are getting?
Hello world from
Hello from
If you access that REST API URL from the postman, whatever the response you are getting, same response you are getting when we are accessing from our Java application also. Whatever the response we are getting, when we access that API from the postman, whatever the response we are getting, same response we are getting from Java application also. Can I call this is a consumer now?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Can I call this is a consumer now?
Yes, sir.
Come on, guys. Come on, respond.
Yes,
Are
sir.
we able to develop a consumer application now?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What is a consumer?
consumer. It consumes the
Come on, what is a consumer? What is a consumer?
Who takes the service from the
Which is accessing the services
Accessing
from
the
another
services
application.
from other application.
The application which is accessing the services from other applications is called as a consumer application. How I developed my consumer now?
Using REST.
How I developed my consumer now?
Using
REST template.
REST
Using
template
REST
class.
template. So what I have done, I created object for the REST template. REST template RT is equal to new REST template. Then I'm calling get for entity method. What is the meaning of get for entity?
It will call get call will do from
It will send
service.
you a get
Return
request.
response entity object.
So for the get method, what are the parameters we are passing? URL comma string dot class. What is the meaning of string dot class?
Return type will be string.
Whatever the response you are getting, store into string variable.
Yes.
Whatever the response you are getting from the provider, that response store into string variable.
In string.
Okay. Tomorrow, if I get JSON as a response, I will store into object. Tomorrow we will see the different providers. I will show you tomorrow who will give JSON data, who will give XML data, who will take post request. So we will work on different types of providers. I will bring tomorrow, and we will develop the consumers for them by using REST template as well as by using web client. So with today's session, I hope you got the basic idea. What is consumer? How many ways we can develop? What is REST template? What is web client? What is the difference between REST template and web client? What is synchronous? What is asynchronous? When to go for synchronous? When to go for asynchronous? How to send a HTTP GET request by using REST template. So tomorrow you will get better clarity on the consumer development, how to send a post request, how to get the JSON data, how JSON data will be represented in the Java object, how to use a web client, how to send a request by using web client. Those things we will learn in the tomorrow session.
Sir, consumer can through UI part also consumer can.
Yes, sir. Tomorrow we will develop a consumer with UI also.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
You got my point?
Yes, sir.
Come on, guys. Any questions, anyone from today's session? So what we have learned today? Today we learned the summary. Today we learned Swagger. Today we discussed what is the Swagger, how to add the Swagger for our project, and we learned the summary, what we have covered so far in the REST API. We discussed about that, and we also discussed about the consumer introduction, and we are able to develop one consumer application also. I hope you got the clarity on the consumer development. So let's stop for today and we'll continue in the tomorrow session. Tomorrow also consumer development only. And don't forget, Saturday, Sunday, microservices session will be available.
Sir, timing?
8 a.m.
Okay, sir.
Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. or 11 a.m. 8 to 11 or 8 to 10:30.
Okay, sir.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay, fine guys, good, thank you.
Thank
With
you,
this,
sir.
I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the tomorrow session. Until then, bye-bye. Have a great day. Please do the practice before coming to tomorrow session.
Sir, just 1 minute, please.
Yeah.
Sir, starting initial days I missed, sir. Sir, lastly you told like context is equals to main method, sir. I did not get that point, please.
That is a start class. So whenever you run the Spring Boot application, it will execute from the start class. Run method will be called. Run method will return configurable application context object. This is IOC container object. Using this IOC container object, I am getting the Spring Boot.
Sir, so far ఇది మనం ఇప్పటిదాకా యూజ్ చేయలేదు కదా context dot get.
In the web application, we don't use it. In the standalone applications, we will use it. This is today, I'm just using for testing purpose. I just want to call that method. So that's why I'm taking the object of IOC container. From that IOC container, I'm getting the message service object. Then I'm calling that method. Okay, I will share the notes for this, guys. It will take another 30 minutes for me to prepare the notes, and I will update the notes in the portal. Sorry, sir, your voice is breaking for me. Could you please come again? Hello?
Sir, what is the difference between Swagger 2 and Swagger 3?
Sir, some UI got changed, sir. So functionality wise same. The user interface got updated. Currently, we are using Swagger 3. Swagger 2 got outdated.
So enable Swagger 2 is related to Swagger 2 annotation, sir, right?
Yes, you can use anything. Better to go with Swagger 3, which is latest.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Okay, guys, good. Thank you. And please share that workshop details with your friends also, because it is going to be a beautiful workshop. You can inform to your friends also who want to learn microservices.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, team.